disease, so they're sick. And some people believe in perfect health, so they don't ever get sick.
So someone who believes that they're healthy, but doesn't eat well and doesn't take care of themselves, how are they going to fare in this?
Everybody knows somebody who's like 85 years old and they're still smoking and they've never had lung cancer or any other problem.
Right.
Because they're happy.
Yeah. Like
they're happy doing that. Yeah, exactly. I was just talking to my mom. She's 80. She's been smoking since she was like 20 years old. I'm like, when are you going to quit? She's like, I stopped asking her. She's happy smoking. It would be so much stress for her now to stop.
Yeah.
She doesn't have anything wrong with her. She takes no drugs. She doesn't go for a walk. She eats whatever. She eats pretty well, but she doesn't exercise. She doesn't do any of those things. What we're talking about is people who are happy. They've let go of all the stuff that bothered them. Why should it bother them anymore? You know, it's the idea of the belief that everything happens to the highest good. So if everything's to the highest good, well, just count it all joy. I'm talking about this big picture thing, and we're really supposed to be talking about health, and how does all this relate to that? Well, people over time have taken parts of themselves and they send it to this person for that problem and this person to that problem. And so they think of themselves as, well, I'm mind over here, and I'm body over here, and I'm spirit when I go to church.
Right.
And it's not like
So
that.
I have my therapist, I have my ear, nose, and throat doctor,
right,
my podiatrist, and my,
exactly.
and my priest.
That's not how our bodies work. That's not how our lives work. In fact, we're seeing the result of that right now with the increase in obesity, with people shooting each other for no apparent reason. All these people that are on medication because they're unhappy and depressed, it's because their lives get segmented and there's nobody that they can go to talk about all these things and to deal with all of it. So my idea is that in the future, people aren't going to go to all these separate people who don't even talk to each other about the same person. They actually are going to go to one person who can really look at them as a whole being. So in the work that I do, when I have somebody come in and they say I have neck pain, what I think is, look at this perfect person here. Let's see what's not theirs and release it.
Like not forgiving someone.
Like the grudges, and maybe there's bad habits that you don't feel good about. I mean, if you feel great eating whatever you want and food is your friend, then, you know, no big deal. But if you're using it as a way to fill a void that can't be filled by food, then you get obese, you see? Doesn't everybody have a friend that's thin and they eat whatever they want? Because they don't look at food that way. Food isn't something that's going to make them feel loved.
Right, and the Western model would say, oh, they just have a more active metabolism.
Maybe they do.
But you're saying they're affecting your metabolism by their attitude.
Yeah.
Wow, this is so interesting. It's, you know, I've definitely learned a lot about different holistic remedies and approaches over the years. So this isn't such a far stretch for me to understand, but thank you for explaining some of that so that the people watching the show can
yeah,
understand it.
It's definitely a different way of looking at things, and in my point of view, it's more holistic than, you know, trying to separate things out, and you know, we've seen what that does. It doesn't help anybody. You know, I'm going to say something outrageous, and that is there aren't less people dying of cancer right now because we have all this money going toward cancer research. It's just not happening. There's not a thing under a microscope that's the cause of cancer. It's not a thing that you can do something to. This is why people are getting sicker and sicker, and they're not getting any better because they keep trying to think there's some magic thing that they can put in their body that's going to create the life they want. Well, that's not the way it works. You create the life you want through what your dreams are and your aspirations and your attitude and your passions and paying attention to those things.
That's probably a really hard one for people to
it's a lot of responsibility.
Because, you know, for some people what they hear from that is, oh, you've given yourself cancer.
Yeah,
and
a lot of people...
I can see people just shutting down and saying, I don't want to hear anymore.
No, they go into blame. And the whole point is that it's not about blame at all. We all have this. We're human beings, and we're raised in this culture. Now, there are some cultures that aren't like that. There are some cultures that don't believe that You get old and then get sick and die. You get old and then you decide you don't want to continue anymore here and you move on. That's what they believe.
When you're treating people, you're trying to find out what's happening behind the scenes and help them to identify. So people have to be really honest with themselves in order to have successful treatments, it seems like.
Well, what's nice about the techniques that I use is you don't have to go back and relive everything that ever happened to you. I can find it subconsciously. It's very private. I just ask them, think about a time when you felt adored. And the first thing they might think of was, I've never felt that way. I don't know what that means. And that's okay too, because the subconscious is already working. One time somebody asked me, think of a time when you felt joy. And I'm like, well, I didn't have enough joy when I was a child. That was the first thing I thought of. But that doesn't mean it's wrong either.
Right.
It's just what I thought of. My subconscious is already doing something. See, and I can't get to it consciously because it's subconscious.
By identifying these memories and these emotions and these things that we have behind the scenes, we're in a position to clear them.
Yeah, and it's a really simple
not have
process.
them affect us anymore.
Right, and to not have them affect our lives. When I ask people, when they come in with a specific problem, I always ask them, why do you think you have this problem?
I'm wondering how much you've seen Western medicine start to adopt some of this treating of the whole person, because it seems like if someone comes in and they have chronic headaches and they just say, okay, well, are you sensitive to light? Are you, they just ask questions about that. But they don't find out that, oh, your husband lost your job and you're worried about paying your mortgage and you've got another child on the way.
Job bear, finances bear. And we're talking about a bear coming into the room and us getting scared.
Yeah.
And then the bear leaves and we're supposed to calm down.
Right.
But if it's job bear, relationship bear, finances bear, we're scared all the time.
Yeah.
Lots of people are.
And then it's a chronic.
Chronic. Because the body memorizes that pattern of behavior. Just like people who drive home from work, they don't know how they got there. They're thinking about the kids or the groceries or the next thing they're supposed to do. And if I ask them, well, when did you hit mile marker or whatever? They'd say, I don't know. It's all subconscious. This is a pattern that's been memorized. The body does it subconsciously. And now it doesn't have to think about it anymore. So you can use your thinking mind to think about all these other things because the subconscious pattern is happening. I don't see much of that happening in Western medicine. I guess it's happening more because the people who come to me are people who are frustrated with that situation. And they're like, they just give me pills. They just gave me PT. I'm not doing anything. In fact, I just had a conversation with a physical therapist the other day. And I said, I understand this patient's progress is plateaued. She said, yeah. I said, do you think it might have something to do with the fact that she's not happy in her life? She said, that's exactly what I think. I said, well, I'm here to concur with you that that's what's going on. And she said, I always think that. When somebody's progress stops, it's because the problem isn't in their body. The problem is outside of them and in their head. And it doesn't mean that it's psychosomatic. It means that that's what's keeping them from going to all the way to healed.
So what is something simple that you could say to anyone in general about starting a process of healing in their lives? Because it sounds like it comes from inside the person, right?
Yeah, it's as simple as this. Close your eyes and think of a time when you were feeling the most unconditional love you can possibly remember ever feeling. And that's when healing starts. When you're thinking about those things that are creating the feeling of unconditional love, doesn't it feel good?
Yeah.
I have a rule. If something bad happens, you can tell it 3 times and then you're done. You can't tell it again. You know what happened the other day? So-and-so hit my car, and boy, I was so mad. You can tell it 3 times, and then that's enough.
Ooh, that's a tough rule.
Yeah, it is. But you know what happens? People use that and they go, wow, it's really freeing. I just don't talk about that anymore. And it's not like it didn't happen. It's just that I'm not going to give it any more weight in my life. Is this what I really want to tell people about myself?
It's interesting because I think part of what happens when people get caught in negativity is that they're looking for it to be validated. They're like, isn't that terrible that traffic accident happened?
Commiseration.
Yeah.
Misery loves company.
Misery
train.
train.
Oh yeah, we have all those nice, little idioms that we can use about that, aphorisms.